Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Do I Have Time For This? The series that looks at old and new video games, from indie to AAA and everything in between, to help you figure out if you've got the time to play, finish, 100% complete a game, or to just leave it in your backlog to forever gather dust. Today we're revisiting an old classic with a new coat of paint, The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered. This game originally released on the Xbox 360 generation of consoles alongside PC back in March of 2006. Now, in 2025, we're treated to a remaster of this game that still uses the Creation Engine as its backbone, but uses the Unreal 5 engine for its visuals. Originally developed by Bethesda, this remaster was made by Virtuous, who've worked on things like the BioShock Collection, Rise of the Ronin, Halo Master Chief Collection, Marvel's Midnight Suns, and the upcoming game from Ken Levine, Judas, which just goes to show they've done a lot of remaster work. In this video I'll be tackling the game from two angles: newbies to the game playing for the first time, and the people like me who put hundreds of hours into the original nearly 20 years ago. Oblivion is set in Cyrodiil, the main province of the overarching Elder Scrolls universe, and you are a nameless character who is fated to meet with the Emperor of Tamriel one night in jail. You're quickly kicked into a world-ending cataclysm as the demon world of Oblivion tries to swallow up Tamriel. A quick bit of admin before we begin: I'm playing this game on PC via Xbox Game Pass, and my PC is a very high-spec one. As such, I've not had many performance issues, but I have heard of stuttering on the PlayStation 5 copy of the game, so please do some research on your platform prior to buying, especially if you're on PC. Now don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. Let's make our custom hero, spec into our stealth archers, and see if we can't save Tamriel from the jaws of Oblivion.
Good afternoon.
We can't talk here. Too public. Meet me behind the great chapel at midnight. Don't let anyone follow you. I'll make it worth your while.
Matter? Getting tired?
It's a fight.
One day you'll find out who the Brethren are, and you'll be sorry. Oh, yes.
To begin with this being an Elder Scrolls game, we're given the needlessly in-depth character creator Bethesda is well known for, although I did notice there's no body modifier here. Once we've customized our face and most likely made some sort of heinous abomination character, we are quickly introduced to the story and led down a path that ultimately leads to a very in-depth tutorial. This tutorial can be hit and miss for some, as it can be quite long, and what's clever is, the playstyle you have over the course of this section is actually what determines your suggested character class.
Stop saying you're the guy. We all know that you're not the guy.
He's not the guy. I am.
And you are?
I'm the guy. The real guy.
Unchanged from the original version of the game, you're offered the option to pick from a set of classes which provide your major skills, alongside the option to just pick a custom class. Here's where the skills and leveling systems got changed around in the remaster. In the original game, the only way to level up was to increase the major skills determined by your class, so it really mattered what it was that you picked, and the stat bonuses when you leveled up were predetermined by what skills you used during that level. In a far more accessible and in my opinion better way of doing things, in the remaster, you can level up by leveling up any skill, much like in Skyrim. The only difference major skills change is that they actually level up faster than the rest. They've also tweaked what some of the passive bonuses you get at each skill milestone do, so it doesn't feel entirely the same as the original. When picking your stat bonuses upon level up, you'll also be given the option of what you want to put your stats into, so you could level up solely from using spells, but not have to put any stats into intelligence. This is a huge change, but it's far more welcome as it lets you play however you want, without having to be mindful not to overuse things to avoid getting huge stat bonuses in something you don't need. More so than Skyrim, Oblivion lets you customize more or less anything about your character, allowing you to name enchanted gear, create spells, and essentially break the game as much or as little as you want. It's a game tailored far more to the role-playing aspect of the series than Skyrim. Over time as the series went on, it got less and less RPG-like, and more action-focused. In my opinion, this is probably the most balanced game in the series for this. Once you get out of the sewers and start the main game proper, true to form of the original, you're left to go just wherever you want. Now we've covered the more RPG elements of the game, let's discuss the world and quest aspect of it. For those who haven't played Oblivion before, you'll find here that the mainline quests for the different guilds and factions are significantly more in-depth and fun than you'd think. Surprisingly, almost all of the writing and quest lines hold up after all this time, though the same can't be said for the voice acting.
I heard that thieves broke into the Arcane University, the Imperial Legion compound, and the temple all on the same night. Wait a minute, let me do that one again. I heard that thieves broke into the Arcane University, the Imperial Legion compound, and the temple all on the same night.
Aside from a few lines that have clearly been re-recorded by new voice actors, the dialogue here has that weird intonation all of the original lines had. The camera also still zooms into their face as if it was some sort of interrogation. Not only this, you'll find that unlike modern games where there's a lot of hand-holding and pathing, you actually have to listen to what NPCs say, as you won't always get a quest marker showing you where to go for every step of the quest. Instead, they'll say something like find evidence in the castle, and then you'll have to find it all yourself before it'll move the quest on. This will be hit and miss for some people, as I know it can be frustrating sometimes when you just want to be told where to go next, but I don't think it's so obtuse as to be downright awkward like it was in Morrowind, the third game of the series. Touted as one of the biggest things in the game at the time, and still kind of impressive now, is that the world doesn't revolve around the player. NPCs have daily routines, they eat, they talk to people, shop, sleep. Infamously, there was an NPC who had a job to go from one town to another, and no matter what, she would die on the way there due to having no means of defense. If you escorted this character and allowed them to live and actually reach their destination, it would end up crashing the game. This gets me onto the jank Oblivion is well known for.
Your money or your life? You're smarter than you look. Take it. It's worthless to me anyway.
Good day.
Guard! Thief! You won't get away with this!
It's all over, lawbreaker. Your spree is at an end. I'll take any stolen goods you have. The next move is yours.
As you can see, it's still very much here, and that's due to how the game is made. As I said before, the game engine bones are still entirely intact underneath the veneer of the Unreal Engine 5 graphics. This means that NPCs will get stuck on benches, go flying from certain spells and attacks, ragdoll when killed, and even fight each other over literally nothing. It's a bit of a double-edged sword in my opinion. I definitely wanted them to keep this in given how nostalgic I am for the game and how funny it is when it happens, but for newer players expecting a polished experience, it can be a bit immersion breaking. It's usually just small things that you can ignore, but it can build up over time as the engine tries to keep up with everything that's going on in the game, and in the worst case, you can get game-breaking bugs that force you to load a save. That being said, a lot of the weirder bugs and exploits have been taken out of the game. You can still do the bound armor and weapon glitch, alongside power leveling alchemy using food, but paintbrushes no longer defy physics, and you can't duplicate scrolls via a glitch anymore. I'm not sure if Virtuous meant to remove anything, or had the goal of removing it all, but some of it remains even now. The creation engine as an entity really needs to be reworked or retired, as it's capable of some great things, but it definitely shows its age in more modern games like Starfield. I think this remaster was ultimately a test to see if Unreal 5 can be laid over creation, to address graphical complaints, and this is likely the format Elder Scrolls 6 will take.
Yeah, well, that's just like, your opinion, man.
Next, one of the main things people wanted overhauled in Oblivion was the combat and enemy scaling. Virtuous did say they were introducing a raft of changes aimed at the combat and stamina management, and they have made it so you only get knocked down now when blocking and out of stamina, but overall, honestly, the combat feels the same. They have added in some way better and less stilted combat animations, where it looks like your character actually understands how to use their weapon, but this doesn't change how the combat actually feels. Bows feel about the same, swinging a warhammer or claymore does feel chunky now thanks to Unreal 5, and the spells look absolutely gorgeous, despite them being just as awkward to aim and hit things with as in the original game. Sadly, enemies still feel extremely spongy the more you level up. You still have to stand and swing your sword for ages or fire 55 arrows into a regular goblin, then inevitably have to repair all of your gear after almost every fight once you reach a certain level. They do react more to power moves to give a bit more visual feedback, but overall, it still just feels like you're standing hacking away for far too long. This is likely due to the fact that, unfortunately for both newcomers and returning players, they didn't take the time to fix the level scaling at all. Essentially, as you level up, the monsters you fight will level up with you, so bandits will start out in fur armor, but as soon as you reach a certain level, they'll upgrade to better armor like elven or glass. This happens everywhere you go in the game, so you'll not be able to steamroll a previous area you've been to, as the enemies will all be upgraded, and even traversing the overworld will become increasingly more dangerous as time goes on. As a result, instead of a power fantasy and real notable feedback that you've gotten more powerful, you just feel weaker as you level up. Given that these upgraded enemies mean using more repair hammers and fighting for significantly longer per fight, this does mean that at a certain point in the game, you'll probably get sick of the combat. It's a shame they never fixed this. There could have been a technical reason as to why not, but this would be on the top of my personal list of things they should have changed. Something else they haven't changed, but this time for the better, are the minigames. Things like alchemy, speechcraft and lockpicking are still here in their original glory, albeit with an updated overlay. I do wish they'd make a bit more of a tutorial for new players that you could skip if you already knew what you're doing, as I've seen a lot of people complaining, especially about the lockpicking. I just think there's something very video gamey about these little minigames, and the speech one especially with the face changing as you spin around the old cheese wheel just looks hilarious. I'm glad they left the charm in on this bit. The last thing to mention gameplay wise is the actual menu and UI itself. I still feel, especially on console, navigating these menus are a massive pain. The hotkeys make a welcome return as they should have, but it's still many button presses to go from map to spells and so on. The map is also a bit of a pain, as it no longer defaults to an indoor map when you enter a house or dungeon, meaning you have to zoom in every single time to be able to see where you're going, which it also never explains to new players. The UI is much more streamlined and I'd argue improved. It's a bit more dynamic on what it shows and when, and brings it more in line with Skyrim's UI overall. Now we've covered gameplay, let's dive into the work Virtuous has done on the graphical overhaul of the game itself. To say this game looks completely different is an understatement. I do think it has lost a bit of the fairy tale charm by muting the colours to be a bit more brown a la Skyrim, but this game essentially looks like how my teenage brain remembers it way back when. It's impressive how much nostalgia can be captured with such a significant overhaul. The hair and fur of animals and humanoids are some of the best hair I've seen in games so far, and the armour sets look so intricately detailed, you can tell there's been a significant amount of time spent handcrafting each of these pieces. They look so much better now than they did in the original. Creatures also look like what you'd expect now. Each wing, bone and horn all reflect what these monsters look like in my head, and it's so cool to see them brought to life in horrifying detail. It's far more intimidating taking something on like a Minotaur, now it doesn't look so silly. The only thing I would mention in terms of the negative around the actual remastering itself, in terms of the visuals, aside from the lack of bloom lighting and the colour palette swap, is two specific animations. First of all, the horse riding animations still look very stilted and kind of goofy, especially when taking the horse up an incline. I'm not sure why they left it so wooden and weird, but it stands out like a sore thumb when you're in charge of a horse, rather than an NPC trotting down a straight road. The other is the sprint animation. Oh my days, the sprint animation.
Oh, don't make me run! I'm full of chocolate!
I don't know how many layers of approval this sprint animation went through, but it looks so stupid I couldn't help but laugh when I first sprinted in third person. As with the horse riding, it looks even worse uphill, where you practically clip through the floor, but I've not seen this daft a sprint animation in some time. That being said though, when your only complaints visually are two animations and some lighting, you know Virtuous did a fantastic job at overhauling this beloved RPG. The music is also still fully intact in Oblivion Remastered. Composed by Jeremy Soule, these lovely string pieces are here in their peaceful splendour. I used to sit and listen to this music for hours. They help you feel like you're in a true fantasy world, whether it be walking around a town or fighting off Daedra at the Oblivion Gates. it's up there with the best fantasy soundtracks in my humble opinion. So let's get down to it. How long does this game take? In a twist from the way I normally review games, I actually didn't finish this one. Given I put hundreds of hours into the original, and this is a shot-for-shot remaster rather than a remake, I've only spent around 15 hours in Oblivion Remastered so far. Don't get me wrong, I fully intend on completing the game. There's just so many out right now vying for my time, and with recently releasing the latest deep dive, which I'll pop a link to on screen, there just wasn't enough time for a 50-hour playthrough. That being said, if you just want to stop the realm of Oblivion and don't care for guilds and other side quests, skipping out a good 90% of the game, it'll take you around 14 hours. On the other hand, if you're a die-hard completionist, want to finish every quest, guild storyline and DLC, you're looking at 90 hours plus, depending on whether you mainline it or are always focusing solely on quests. The game costs £50 or $50, and is also available on Game Pass if you're on PC or Xbox. On the original game, I played every race you could be on a separate save file for around 20 to 40 hours, with my main save going up to around 120 hours. So safe to say, there's an insane amount of game here for your money. In a pro-consumer move, Bethesda have also bundled in all of the DLC for free, which includes all of the different hideouts and the Night of the Nine expansion, alongside the famous otherworldly expansion Shivering Isles, which has more content than all of the rest combined. They have marketed the horse armor as a microtransaction, which, as a throwback joke to the dawn of microtransactions, is kind of funny. They've also locked some new quests behind the deluxe version of the game, but honestly, you're not missing much beyond some cool looking gear, so don't feel like you'll be missing anything by not getting it. As for the achievements, they are the same as the original game. Complete all guild and faction quests alongside the main story. They have added in the DLC achievements for Shivering Isles 2, which means that you have to save scum one of them as it is choice based, but that doesn't inflate the playtime very much. In terms of time spent, you can probably get away with half an hour playtime at a time. I think anything shorter than that you'd struggle to complete a quest or dungeon in that time. There is a manual and quick save alongside an autosave, so you'll never really lose any progress and can stop and start whenever you need to. I do feel like this game benefits from you walking from point A to point B, spending some time living in the world and truly getting immersed, but it can be played in shorter sessions if needs be, and paused whenever. If you're a newcomer to Oblivion Remastered, I definitely recommend you play it. If you can put up with the dated voice acting, spongy combat, procedurally generated areas, and sometimes immersion-breaking jank, you will have an incredible time living in the world of the fourth entry in the Elder Scrolls series. I envy you being able to play this game for the first time with this level of fidelity. With the UI improved and some of the stamina and combat tweaks, it just feels like an all-round improved package that, aside from lighting and a few silly animations, just feels way better than the original. You might need to Google a quest or two with it being a bit unintuitive at times, and you may find combat gets difficult at times too, but given you can always drop the difficulty down in the menu, you can work around these issues wherever necessary. The fun writing, quirky and interesting quests still hold up after all this time, and given the amount of time I put into it nearly 20 years ago, it's a testament to how good the game is that I still want to spend this much time on it so many years later. If you aren't new to this game, however, it's a tough one as to whether I recommend this game or not. It sounds silly, but honestly it depends on your expectations of the game. When I played the intro to the remaster, it was just after I played the intro for the original for my other video on Oblivion I released a few weeks ago, talking about when this remaster was actually going to drop. As a result, I noticed literally everything was the same, down to the positions of chests, items, and enemies. And that's okay. In my opinion, a remaster shouldn't change anything like that, but if you are expecting an overhaul in terms of item locations, quests, or characters, there's nothing like that at all. What I'm trying to get at is, if you played hundreds of hours back in the day, and you know the game like the back of your hand, nothing's really going to surprise you save for what characters and items look like. If you're fine with that and want to relive the old days, you'll be more than happy. But if you're expecting more of a remake in the vein of Resident Evil 2, you're going to be disappointed. This is by no means a deal breaker for me, but definitely worth pointing out. It's also worth pointing out that this is a typically buggy experience, with some performance issues in spots, so make sure you're researching your platform before jumping in. But overall, I don't think you can do better than what I believe to be the best Elder Scrolls game to date. Do you have time for Oblivion Remastered? On this channel I like to give my thoughts on the game, alongside a bit more of a deep dive on the time you have to invest, so you know what you're getting into, because time is precious, right? If you enjoyed the video or found it useful, feel free to like and share. If you subscribe, I'm looking to put out regular content like this, alongside some more in-depth video essays and freeform videos, so stick around, and if you have any requests on future videos, just drop them in the comments. And finally, if If you want to come chat with me, you can find me over on x.com/gracious_rhino. I'm Gracious Rhino. Look after each other, and I'll catch you soon.